Hello, dear teachers. Welcome back to another episode of a new lesson on Seminar in Language Teaching and Learning. As you remember, the objective of this course is to discuss critically and revisit the major issues and also major topics in language teaching and learning, especially an Iranian L2 context. Let me show you. Okay, so first of all, if you want to have a better understanding of these topics and issues, it's better to study the scholarly journals. I have actually presented you the photos of the the cover page or of some of the top journals in language teaching and L2 education and also in general education here. In the next slide, I try to introduce and show you a longer list of the journals where you can find the major topics, issues, and challenges in L2 education. As you see here in our syllabus or lesson plan, the topic of the second session is introducing major issues in L2 education. Today we are going to talk about the major issues, just to know what are the major issues. Okay, so you are familiar and based on your experience as language learners and language teachers or students of MA studies. You have studied many articles, many textbooks, and you listen to some speeches. I know that, or lectures, I know that you're familiar with some of the topics, but in order to revisit and remember and to discuss what topics and issues or challenges are more serious than the other ones. Okay, so it's a matter of interest. It depends on you. It doesn't mean that, for example, issue one is more important than the other one. What is important is understanding the issues. For example, if you select item A or topic A instead of topic, for example, Y or Z, which is, for example, the last one, it depends on the understanding. If you understand A thoroughly, is better than to select, for example, Y, but you superficially understand that. So selecting topics, selecting issues is a matter of your energy and enthusiasm to explore it, to study it, to understand it, and to make yourselves understood, to help others to understand. Okay, so today we are going to remember what are the major issues, major topics in language teaching and learning. Please think about them, and after this session you can write, you can think about the major issues. And I do not expect you to remember all issues, okay? You only remember the issues that you have been concerned with and you have been conscious about. Sometimes some issues are important, more important than the other ones. They are real serious, okay? They are really critical. But because of your cognition, you have never noticed it. So it doesn't mean that. You should think, okay, these things or these are the topics and there are no other topics. No, there are many other topics that we are not familiar with. Or in a single topic, there are many dimensions and perspectives and aspects that we are not familiar with. So do not be biased about the topics that you are familiar with and you know them. You may study, and you should study the scholarly journals, and if you want to have a better understanding of the topics and to find a comprehensible list of the topics and issues and challenges, so it's better to study scholarly journals to find them than to familiarize yourself with them. Okay, so these journals and many other journals that I will introduce them and provide you with a list of them, and you are familiar with some of them. You can revisit and rethink and give a second thought to different teachings and teaching and learning issues and challenges or topics. Generally speaking, I myself think that the issues of language teaching and learning, or the challenges or the topics, um, can be categorized into three categories. The first one refers to the uh, policy making. It refers to the decision of authorities, okay, authorities who are higher than, in higher position than teacher and a student. So it means the culture bound actually topics. It refers to the political worlds. It refers to socio-economical world. It refers to socio-historical and cultural actually context. For example, here you can see that how the goal of education is defined in a culture. For example, here you can see the goal of education has been defined here. If you see, let me maximize the size here. How can I find it? Let me, okay, to see. For example, 45% of American citizens say that the goal of education is to prepare students academically. Yes, to prepare students academically. Think about our own context. Suppose Iranian educational context. You see that the goal of education is defined to successfully pass the courses, to be admitted to universities and pass, for example, Kurkur exam. Passing the exam to become a member, a student at top universities of Iran, or for teachers, for university instructors, promotion is the most important goal. The other one is prepare students for work, 25, and the last one is prepare students to be good citizens. Okay, so here you can see that in modern countries, in developed countries, again, only 26% of people believe that the goal of education is to prepare students to become successful citizens. Successful citizen, the definition of successful and success is very important. But in countries like Iran, where education is exam oriented and concours dominates people's thinking and thoughts, so you can see that we only 1 or 2% of people may believe in this category on dimension of gender. Most of people, they believe that preparing students for work or to earn money, to have income, and to things like that, okay, is much more important. So if you think this way, to prepare students and people for to have successful career in terms of incoming and earning money, so a catastrophe happens. something very bad happen, it means that they do not study and learn, and they do not think critically about social issues. They only think about their own position in the society and the materialistic view they may take and have. Okay, so this is the most important, actually, area of challenge or topics. If we have problem, if we have some issues, if we have some challenges and topics in our L2 education, and if you think that sometimes teaching and learning actually do not match, that is because the goal of education, which is defined by the authorities or the people or the teachers or all people of the community, that definition or decision making or policy actually making is not what it should be. It is of lower importance. Okay, so the other one is teachers. Okay, do we have teacher education in our in different societies? Okay, so our teachers sometimes are source of problem. We are teachers. I am teacher, and you are teacher. So me and you and other teachers, we are source of problems. Our knowledge base may be limited. Sometimes our attitudes, and most often, our cognitions, ذهنیت ما, what we think about the goal of education, what we think about, what we know about, actually, things like that. Goal of education, our abilities, our expertise, our relationship with the students, okay? The techniques, the styles and strategies, student needs and purposes, so it determines the quality of education. So it is important. Teachers are very important and significant aspects of education, any kind of education. So teachers' identities, teachers' skills, teachers' abilities, teacher cognitions, teacher understandings are actually provide us a large number of topics that we can choose, and we can focus on them. So teachers should not be ignored. Sometimes people may say that, okay, all decisions are actually made by a decision maker, by authorities, by policy makers. Yes, they actually design and prepare decisions. They make decisions, but it doesn't mean teachers cannot manipulate the syllabus, the curriculum. Teachers are actually implementers. Sometimes teachers are also designers and developers. If you have high quality teachers with high quality technicians, understandings, abilities, and assuming high quality skills, abilities, and professional identities, so they can compensate for bad decisions. Then on the other side, we have students and the learners, or second language acquisition. Second language acquisition refers to learning second language, for example, learning pronunciation, phonology, vocabulary, writing, things like that. Okay, so it specifically focuses on different aspects and perspectives of language learning. Okay, some people say that, okay, forget about teachers, forget about the policies, forget about curriculum and syllabus. So this is because of the age of our learners. This is because of interference of the first language, or sometimes you say that it is because of individual differences. Yes, and things like that. Okay, because of the practice, because of things like this. That people have problem or learners have problem like so this is second language acquisition or SLA related problem, for example learning phonology or things like that. Motivation, this is actually the broader topics which relate to policy making, policy authorities, decision making, syllabus, curriculum, and this is the quality of the teachers. Okay, how teachers think, do, believe, and see or interpret the goal of education, their own activities, and their own qualities and skills. So to review, we said that if you want to find the major issues and challenges, and finally to decide on topic of interest or topics of interest, so refer to these three categories. You can either focus on teachers, you can either focus on actually policy making, or you can focus on SLA related acquisition. But you may actually divide these in, for example, 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 categories to think specifically. But I think that generally speaking, these three main categories exist. And for example, about our culture-based problems, sometimes we are not actually, we do not think. We usually study to read something, to remember some pieces of information, to pass the exam, to satisfy our teachers. That's why that most often learners participating or taking a course, they say that at final exam, they say that, okay, I copy pasted the answers in the exam sheet, but for example, I failed. I okay, did not deserve that score. So this copy pasting shows our culture of education. When you copy paste something, it doesn't mean that you have learned. It means that you haven't learned. It means that you haven't thought about it. It means that you haven't actually linked the issue and topic to the real world situation, to your real lives. So you have not thought critically about the topic. You have only memorized, you have only copy pasted whatever have been said by others in on your exam sheet. It doesn't mean that you have that. So it exactly means that you have not learned it, because you have not thought about it. Just we try to, this is not actually, you should not be blamed, or I should not be blamed. Sometimes it is my pitfall as a teacher, and it is your pitfall as learners. But this is because of our culture of education, because of the goal of education, because of the expectation of our teachers and expectation of our parents, our fellow members. And they think that if you copy paste exactly whatever you have read in your sources, so it means that you have been a critical and smart student. Please think more and read less. Or let me put it another way. If you read something once, think twice, think 3 times, give it a second thought, or third thought, or fourth thought. This is very important. Okay, the other problem is that our education is usually exam oriented. A student usually study the textbooks, the course sources to pass the exam. For example, if I introduce a textbook, you usually go to study that textbook because the teacher has said, the instructor had specified this as the source of this course, and you study to pass the course. You do not go to study other parallel sources. To improve the quality of your knowledge. And this is actually culture based or oriented problem of education. For example, when you study for concours, different types, different kinds, different levels of concours, you only try to be admitted by top universities. You study some tricks, some testing tricks, or you try to be test-wise. So here you do not think as much as possible. But in terms of SLA, you see that, for example, some people may say that, okay, forget about the policies, forget about the culture. If you want to learn second language or to have second language acquisition, successful second language acquisition, there is a lack of exposure. There is a lack of practice. The schools and universities curriculum does not provide, the society does not provide learners enough exposure or practice. Or sometimes you say that the students should be motivated. For example, the other one refers to learning culture. Sometimes people do not actually are not motivated to study culture. If you remember from the previous semester and course, we said that culture should be learned, not because we like target actually language culture or we hate target language culture. Because we need to learn pragmatics. Pragmatic is to make decision about why some actually items are used instead of other items. Language user communication is meaning making choices. When we learn language, it means that we learn how to have meaning making choices, why some choices are used instead of other. This is the task of pragmatics. This is the issue of pragmatics. And pragmatics is usually actually controlled by or influenced by culture, second language or target language culture. So we need to study culture at least in order to have better understanding, control, learning of pragmatics. Sometimes you may think that one of the problems of second language learning or second language learners is the use of L1 in classes. L1 should be used strategically in actually in L2 instruction, but unfortunately, especially in Iranian context, you see that L1 or Farsi is not used strategically. Always they use Farsi. This is because of some problems, some pitfalls. Okay, if it is good to use Farsi or L1 in L2 instruction, but it should be used strategically. And you can think about these things. What does it mean by strategic use of L1? Do we have something that like a strategic and non-strategic use? The other one is employing learning theories. You can see that teachers think about um, different teaching methods. People usually talk about different teaching methods. Like, for example, some of they prefer audiolingualism, some of they talk about Suggestopedia, without knowing anything about their background, their supporting theories of education and theories of learning. So if you want to teach successfully and learn successfully a language or any subject matter area, so you should be familiar, you should know which theory of learning you are following. The other one is materials. Sometimes materials are not needs based. So, for example, if students are going to learn advanced writing, but you teach them vocabulary items, so they need to how to write a paragraph, how to write an essay. So the whole course is devoted to teaching and learning vocabulary items. So you are not following, you are not actually instructing based on student needs and purposes. Then we have genre and things like that. And again, the second category refers to teacher-related challenges. Sometimes, if you forget about authorities, if you forget about SLA problems, some problems relate to teachers' qualities, teachers' cognitions, teachers' attitudes. This is very important. Okay, do not forget about the role and the influence, the place of teachers in education, any kind of education. Teacher cognition should be of high quality. Teacher cognition means what? Teachers know. Okay. Mr. Mullah Shahi, Ms. Jalalizadeh, and Purmir Sotude, Aryani, Khabar. Okay, what do you know about? Have you ever thought about your knowledge? What do you believe about, for example, teaching reading comprehension? What do you know about? Think about this one critically. What do you know about teaching and learning reading comprehension? What do you believe about it? How do you do it? How do you teach reading comprehension? And what do you feel about your activities, your knowledge? Have you ever actually considered, have you ever thought about your knowledge, your beliefs, your acts? And how do you feel? Why teachers' cognitions may be of high quality, of low quality. This is a possibility. One of the sources of problem is apprenticeship observation. It means that as learners you have learned about teaching, and you have learned teaching from your teachers, all teachers, primary school teachers, secondary school teachers, and tertiary education teachers. So this is the most powerful source of learning. It means that whatever you have learned from the textbooks and actually research articles are not as influential as what you have learned in language classes through observing your teachers. Even if you hate, I use the word hate, the term hate. Even if you hate one of your teachers, but you have learned, even if you do not like his attitudes, her attitudes, or her activities, when you want to apply or teach in real classes, again you follow the ways you have seen or observed, experienced with your previous teachers, even those whom you have hated. Then we have historical and cultural barriers. It means that sometimes students do not have high quality or standards of life. They do not spend time and energy to work better. These are some of the problems. The other one is teacher knowledge base. Okay, teacher knowledge base about language, teacher knowledge base on language skills, knowledge base about actually teaching itself, the abilities and skills of teacher. Then a teacher should have different professional identities. A teacher, most often teachers think that they need two things. One, to know the subject matter. For example, if they are teachers of geography, they should know geography. And if they are teachers of English, they should be native like speakers of English. And then they should have experience of teaching. No, if you want to be a teacher, you should have different profession. You should be materials evaluator, you should be policy maker, you should be curriculum device designer, you should be syllabus designer, you should be needs analyst, you should be genre analyst, you should be discourse analyst, you should be corpus analysis, at least understanding these things. So you should be the ability to collaborate. You should be a manager. So these things are different professional identities that a teacher should possess, a teacher should acquire and assume, and then display. Then teacher practices. Okay, there should be some practices which are informed by research, informed by actually modern theories of learning and teaching. Okay, so next time I ask you to think about different topics, different issues and challenges in L2 education, especially focusing Iranian context. I have provided with you with sample actually ideas. For example, one of the articles actually was asking the teachers around the world that what do you think about challenges of L2 education. I have actually reviewed the comments and also the answers by the international teachers, and I see that some of them have written these ones. For example, I have provided you with some samples and I ask you to actually use this style. For example, from my experience, the first challenge is how to get students to put aside their urge to use L1 while practicing L2. This is one of the actually topics and challenges I introduced above. Okay, you can read these texts, and this is the genre through which if somebody asks you to talk about or write about something this way. And if you do not want to actually limit your answers to actually writings, you can record your voices and you can talk about your topics of interest. The other point is that after discussing, after choosing some of the topics, listing some of the topics, it doesn't mean that you should write about, for example, 50 items, 50 topics. You may be interested in, or you may think that 10 topics are of most importance. Write 10 items or 10 categories or 10 topics or issues or challenges, but choose 1, 2, or 3 of the topics and focus on them. These are again other examples. So you can use these examples, okay, as models. Then here we have the ways that you can use in order to find L2 education issues. For example, you can refer to your own experiences as learners and your own experiences as teachers. For example, I remember Miss Jalalizadeh, Purmir, Mullah Shai sometimes have uh, talk about the challenges of L2 education based on their own actually teaching experience, whatever they have observed in their classes, Satude and Ariani and Khavar also. As far as I remember, talk about the problems of teaching and learning as they have experience as learners. The other one is that you may forget about your own experience. You can refer to whatever you have observed, okay, from your friends, your classmates, your teachers, actually teaching activities. And most importantly, if you want to be updated and if you want to be familiar with the modern, with the the topics which are of top topics, so you can read scholarly journals. I have provided you with some actually scholarly journals. For example, Australian Journal of Teacher Education. I have put Australian journal because I want to say that these journals, even Australian journals and some other journals from other countries, are top journals. Okay, do not hesitate. You can use them. For example, Teaching and Teacher Education. This is one of the top journals that you can use them. Asia Pacific Journal of Teacher Education, European Journal of Teacher Education Quarterly, Contemporary Issues in Technology and Teacher Education, Journal of Teacher Education, The Teacher Educator, Action and Teacher Education. These actually journals are about teachers and teacher education, teacher quality, teacher cognition, teacher identity. So I have other lists. For example, this is the top journals in language, not in teacher education, but in the United Kingdom. And you review Applied Linguistics, Journal of Second Language Writing, Applied Linguistics, and these are all the journals that you can use. And if you're interested in, you can actually choose and study them. Okay, and again I have another list. USA, published in USA Journal of Communication, Language Teaching Research, Communication Theory. You can choose the some of the journals that you think that are top journals. It depends on you. But what your assignment is to think about based on your own experience as learners and teacher, think about the issues and problems and choose some of the topics, and please write and also record your voice and tell us why those topics are important and you think are important. Then you can choose some of the top journals, and you can, for example, review at least for example 10 issues or 2 or 3 volumes, and then write the topic and abstract of the latest issues, like what you have done in the previous semester. But in this semester, for one session, only 5 or 10 issues, not all issues, the recent issues. Okay, and you in order to find out what are the top issues, what are the current issues, and then you may have your own selection, and you can write and also record your voice that why that topic is of your interest. Okay, I am waiting for your assignments. Please prepare your assignment as soon as possible. Before going to the next session, you should submit your assignment of the previous session. These assignments are not to put you under pressure, but the purpose is to encourage you to think about the topics that we are trying to cover in these courses and in these lessons and sessions. Okay, thank you for your patience and thank you for your listening. I'll come to you next session. Bye until next time.